7 spine-chilling encounters in forbidden Appalachian cabins, terrifying secrets exposed. Ethan, Mia, Sarah, and Leo stepped into the old cabin, a building that seemed to breathe with history. The dark wood creaked under their weight, whispering secrets of a time long gone. It was surrounded by towering trees, their gnarled branches swaying as if warning them to turn back. The air felt thick, heavy with the weight of the unknown. Legends spoke of spirits roaming these woods, unable to escape their past, and the 4 friends couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. As they unpacked and settled in for a cozy campfire meal, the shadows played tricks on the walls around them. Flickering flames danced, casting eerie shapes that seemed almost alive. When dinner wrapped up, laughter filled the air as they shared ghost stories. Ghostly apparitions, restless souls, and dark family secrets were just fun party tricks, right? Then Leo, with a grin that revealed a hint of mischief, suggested a contest. Who could tell the scariest tale before the night ended? Mia was the first to speak, her voice trembling slightly as she recalled a tale her grandmother had told her. That particular cabin, warped by time, had a history of dark happenings, people missing, inexplicable occurrences lurking in the shadows. They say if you listen closely, you can hear their voices calling you, she said, the wind howling outside, as if punctuating her words. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, the lightheartedness slipped away like water through their fingers. Ethan felt a tightness in his chest as he looked around. What if these stories aren't just stories? He wondered, a chill running down his spine. The old cabin creaked ominously, conjuring memories he wished he could bury deeper. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then it happened. A strange noise echoed from the attic above them. They exchanged glances, tension rising like the temperature of boiling water. Mia's heart raced, she felt compelled to find out what lurked above. The group hesitated but agreed to explore the darkness together. As they climbed the narrow staircase, the air grew colder. Each step felt heavier, weighted with what they might find in the attic. Dust motes danced like lost spirits in the beam of their flashlight. Then they found a faded photograph, its corners frayed, revealing stern faces from centuries ago. These were their ancestors, mapmakers and settlers entwined with stories that mirrored their own suffering. A connection, a heavy silence enveloped them, threading through hidden shames and unspoken truths. As they stared at the image, strange whispers began to fill the room, names flitting by on tentacles of cold air. What is this place? Ethan murmured, the walls seeming to close in. Shadows moved, stretching across the floor like fingers reaching out. The friends felt their hearts pound as the walls echoed their secrets, their pasts crashing together like uninvited guests, and with that, they found themselves trapped not just in the cabin, but in the haunted legacy woven through generations. As the night wore on, so did the dark encounters, each revealing a piece of their own haunting truths. Their disturbing history echoed through those abandoned walls. Would they unravel the ties that bound them, or would the cabin and its tormented spirits keep them forever? The whispers grew louder, the sound curling around them like a thick fog. Each name seemed to tug at Ethan's heartstrings, pulling him down into a murky pool of dread. He could feel his pulse quicken. "Did you hear that?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia shivered, glancing around the attic while gripping the photograph tighter. What if they want us to remember? Remember what? Leo frowned, the bravado he once wore fading. The unease in the air was palpable, squeezing the life out of their once fun venture. Sarah stepped back, her gaze fixed on the shadows writhing against the wall, searching desperately for a source of light that could break the encroaching darkness. "This isn't just a cabin, something is wrong here," she breathed, eyes wide with fear. In an attempt to regain control, Leo pointed his flashlight at the boards lining the ceiling. There could be something up there, a hidden space, a secret. Let us go. He climbed further into the attic, driven by a mix of courage and curiosity, but with every creaking step, the old wood protested like a voice protesting the intrusion. Mia hesitated, fear gnawing at her gut. Maybe we should go back, we don't know what's up there. But Leo was already up there, peering into the darkened corners, his flashlight beam revealing bits of dust and cobwebs swirling like the past refusing to be forgotten. Ethan followed, his heart pounding like a war drum, its rhythm drowning out the whispers. As they reached the highest point of the attic, Leo's flashlight fell on something that made his breath catch. An old chest lay half hidden in the shadows, its surface covered in a layer of grime. "Check this out," Leo exclaimed, pulling a rusty latch. The sound of metal scraping against metal echoed unnaturally loud, sending chills down their spines. Mia took a cautious step forward. "What do you think's inside?" "It could be just old clothes or something worse," Ethan murmured, gripping Mia's arm, both of them rooted in apprehension. With a sharp pull, the chest creaked open, revealing an array of tattered books and yellowed letters. As Leo thumbed through them, the whispers intensified, swirling around the friends like a tempest. "Look!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "These are journals, they belong to the people in the photo." Suddenly, a paper flew from the chest, gliding across the air before landing at Sarah's feet. She picked it up gingerly, her eyes scanning the faded handwriting. "It says, 'I beseech you never forget their names, for our sins chain us to this place.'" Those words weighed heavily upon them, a dark cloud pressing down. Mia felt tears prick her eyes. "What does it mean? Why do we need to remember them?" "I don't know, but I think the stories are more than just tales," Ethan said, dread pooling in his stomach as he clenched his fists. "They're warning us." Then, the air thickened, suffocating them. The shadows spiraled closer, enveloping them, lapping at their ankles like unsettling waves. A sudden crash echoed through the attic, and their flashlight flickered violently before going dark entirely. "Leo, where are you?" Mia called, panic tightening her voice. Only silence replied. A stifling silence that threatened to collapse under the weight of their fear. "Turn around!" Sarah screamed, her voice piercing through the encroaching darkness. But as they spun around, their flashlight flickered back to life, illuminating a figure standing in the far corner, cloaked in darkness. "Who are you?" Ethan gasped, heart racing as the figure stepped forward, revealing hollow eyes filled with sorrow and rage. And as it spoke, its voice resonated with the whispers that haunted them. "You should have never come here." What did it want from them? The air crackled with unanswered questions, leaving them gasping for clarity. The cabin's grip tightened around them, suffocating their breath with each passing moment. Was it too late to escape their ancestors' past? Would the spirits bind them to this fate? Then it lunged, and in that terrifying moment, the darkness closed in, and everything went silent once more. What would they find when silence fractured again? The silence shattered. A scream pierced through the quiet, sharp and desperation-filled. It was Sarah. In the dim light, the figure had lunged toward them, its movements unexpectedly fluid, catching them mercilessly off guard. Ethan instinctively grabbed Mia's arm, pulling her back. "We need to run." But his words fell into the void, punctuated by the weight of fear stifling their breaths. The figure's hollow eyes flickered in the dimness, their sorrow twisting into a grin that sent ice cold through Ethan's veins. "You cannot escape the past," it said, the voice echoing as if multiple souls were trapped within, angry and sorrowful at once. Mia stumbled back, her vision narrowing as the shadows surrounding them thickened like an ink spill. "What do you want from us?" she shouted, her voice rising in fear. "We didn't do anything." The figure paused, tilting its head as if considering her words. "You carry their blood, their secrets." It stepped closer, wisps of dark energy trailing from its fingertips, drawing Ethan's thoughts into a muddled chaos. Memories began to seep into his mind, flashes of events he'd never lived. Faces, names, events long buried but deeply felt. He staggered, the weight of dread pushing him down. "Ethan!" Mia cried, her voice shrill as she pulled him back. "Don't listen to it." But the entity only laughed, a low, guttural sound that set the very air vibrating. "The truth will consume you. You have awakened what should remain forgotten." Sarah, still clutching the letter, suddenly spoke up with newfound determination. "What if we do remember? What if we face it? Maybe that's the only way to stop." Ethan shouted, holding his hands up. "What if that just makes it worse?" The figure's laughter edged into a snarl. "You think running will save you? The sins of your ancestors will bind you as it has bound them." It reached out a hand, a swirling mass of darkness surging toward them. Leo, finally breaking from the paralysis of fear, surfaced behind them, panting heavily. "What's happening?" His voice crackled, hoarse and filled with panic. The shadows swirled like a tempest, cutting off their escape. "There's no place for you here," the figure hissed, ire creeping through its tone. "You must decide, to remember or to forget." A horrifying thought crashed into Ethan's mind. What if they were not just uncovering the past, but stepping into it? The journals Leo had found, the names they read aloud, did those summon this vengeful spirit? He felt himself wavering, torn between the wounded cries buried deep in the letters and the frightening reality before them. "We need a plan. We can't just stand here." Mia stepped forward, defiance flashing in her eyes. "We need to confront this. If those names are as powerful as it says, maybe they can help us." Maybe, Ethan wondered, his heart thumping in trepidation. Facing the spirit felt like walking off a cliff and praying there would be something to catch him. The figure remained poised, its gaze piercing. "Dare you confront the forgotten?" The shadows at its feet twisted, revealing writhing images of lost lives woven into their depths. Ethan felt his resolve weakening, but he couldn't retreat. "We're not afraid of you," he declared, though his voice trembled slightly. In an instant, the entity lunged, darkness enveloping them once more. But before it could strike, Ethan shouted, "We remember. We will remember their names." That utterance seemed to ripple through the ether, resonating with the whispers gathered around them. The figure halted, eyes wide, as if caught between worlds. A cacophony erupted, the very walls of the cabin vibrating with ancient sorrow. Ethan felt the weight of countless souls pressing upon him, and then silence again. "What did we just unleash?" Mia whispered, her eyes reflecting the dread that thrummed in the air. Their breaths were shallow, hearts racing. The cabin felt alive, shaking under the weight of a dark secret they had dared to awaken. And as the shadows began to pull away, leaving room for a sliver of light, an ancient voice echoed in their minds, "You have awakened an unavoidable fate." What awaited them beyond the fading darkness? Was their journey only beginning? Ethan felt a sharp chill run down his spine as the silence stretched, suffocating their breaths. The air was thick, heavy with an unseen force lingering in every corner of the cabin. He could hear his heart thundering in his chest, a wild drumbeat of fear that propelled him forward. Mia gripped his arm tighter, her knuckles white. "What now?" she whispered, desperation twisting her words. "Did we do the right thing?" Before he could respond, Leo stumbled closer, his face paling. "Are we sure we should have done that? We might have just made it worse." The shadows in the corners seemed to writhe, and the echoes of that ominous voice still echoed in the cabin. Something ancient and hidden simmered just beneath the surface, ready to break free. Ethan could feel it. "Guys, we have to focus," Sarah interjected, gathering herself after their earlier shock. "We need to remember what those names were. If they really can help us." Her voice trailed off, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "Help us?" Mia snapped, anger boiling over. "This thing is not trying to help. Whatever those secrets are, they've brought us to the brink of danger." Ethan's mind raced. But if we truly did awaken some kind of curse or spirit, maybe these names are the key. A way to put things right. He glanced around the room, the light from the waning moon barely piercing through the thick darkness. Suddenly, a chilling wind howled through the cabin, slamming the front door shut with a force that sent tremors through the floorboards. Their collective breath hitched as shadows flared back to life, gathering once again around the figure. It emerged, sharper, clearer, its hollow eyes blazing with an otherworldly glow. "You seek to reshape the past," it hissed, voice now a symphony of despair and malice. "But every memory unveils a truth that may break you." "Shut up!" Leo yelled. "You can't scare us." But his voice trembled, a wave of uncertainty lapping at his bravado. The figure laughed, a terrible sound that echoed in Ethan's mind. "Tell me then who will carry the burden of remembering? Who dares speak the names?" Ethan swallowed hard, throat dry. We'll speak their names." The unease wavered, drawing the group's eyes to him. The weight of expectation pressed heavily, but he pressed on. "We want to honor them, to uncover the truth." "Then let the echoes begin," the figure chortled, its shadowy form shifting and twisting as it turned toward a darkened corner of the space. "Speak. Speak and meet what lies in the heart of your blood." He cleared his throat, a net of dread tightening around him. "John Elizabeth Annabelle." His voice came out in a whisper, but the words hung heavily in the air, charged with weight. Each name sent a shudder through the cabin, igniting the shadows into flickering chaos. "Feel the memories," the figure urged, its sightless eyes pinning them in place. "Let the pain awaken the lost." Mia's eyes filled with uncertainty, but she stepped forward. "Thomas Joseph Margaret." Her voice gained strength with every name she spoke, and a profound reaction surged around them. The shadows twisted in furious agitation, tremors pulsing through the cabin as if they were alive. Leo hesitated, glancing between them, then choked out, "Gracelyn." "Harold." The figures of their ancestors flickered in and out of the shadows, sorrowful faces materializing for brief moments before collapsing back into obscurity. A pulse of energy surged, crashing against them like a tidal wave. Ethan felt memories clawing their way into his mind, vivid and raw. He saw scenes of suffering, of life lost but not forgotten, feeding into the darkness that surrounded the figure. "What are we doing?" he exclaimed, panic rising in his chest. "We need to stop." But the air held them captive, the cabin vibrating with the cries of those they had named. "You cannot stop now," the entity echoed ominously. "The truth has a way of bleeding into your soul itself." As if on command, the figures materialized one last time, their eyes brimming with agony and hope. Ethan realized that they were not alone in this darkness. Another presence was awakening alongside it, an emotion buried under years of suffering. "Fight against it." Sarah shouted, stepped forward with renewed resolve. "These names are our connection. They are our power." Just as the shadows began to swallow them once more, Ethan's heart pounded against the walls of his chest. He could feel the weight of countless generations pressing against them. Their path lay ahead, obscured but waiting, teetering between salvation and condemnation. What comes next? He wondered aloud. Face them or flee? And as doubt snaked into their hearts, the voice of the entity whispered, "The moment of reckoning is close at hand." What truth would they have to confront next? What price would be required for their reckoning? The air thickened with dread, wrapping around Ethan and his friends like a suffocating blanket. Each breath felt laborious as they faced the figure, the unseen force swelling in the cabin like a storm ready to unleash itself. Ethan's heart raced, pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Shadows danced and swirled, hungry for more names, more memories. "We can't stay here," Mia whispered, her voice slight and quivering. "It's too much. We opened something that shouldn't be. Don't you dare back down now." Leo shot back, his eyes wide with fear and fury. "We need to see this through. We have to know. There's got to be a reason we're here." Ethan found himself caught in the riptide of Leo's determination. The figure loomed closer, its shadowy form rippling like liquid smoke, and the air crackled with latent energy. "More names, more souls," it hissed, echoing from the depths of some forgotten abyss. "You tread upon the fragile strands of existence." Each name Ethan had spoken, each flash of memory, forged a link to something powerful and ancient. The fear pounding through him now mingled with a strange yearning. What comes next? He dared to ask, his voice barely more than a whisper, the uncertainty clawing at him. Pain precedes clarity, the figure replied, its hollow eyes piercing into the depths of Ethan's soul. What truths twist in your heritage? Speak. Let them out. Alfred Clara, Sarah stammered, her words spilling forth like water from a broken dam. Each name hung in the air, twisting the shadows tighter around them. Ethan felt a shiver as something unfathomable surged within him, memories digging into the recesses of his mind. Suddenly, a powerful gust ripped through the cabin, rattling the windows and forcing them to stumble back against the wall. A glowing light pierced the veil of shadows, blindingly brilliant. It cast the faces of their ancestors into sharp relief, each one echoing their own story of heartache and longing. The ethereal glow pulsated with emotion, fear, sorrow, love, each feeling a haunting echo of what had transpired long before them. What are you? Ethan cried, overwhelmed by a deluge of emotions that threatened to drown him. Why are you here? We are the ghosts of your blood, the legacy unseen. Only through the pain of remembrance can you free the shackles that bind you. The entity swayed, its voice threading through the air like a mournful tune. Awaken the lost. Another name burst forth from Mia. Lillian. Edward. Her voice rose, stronger, almost reverent. The shadows quivered, almost excited by her courage. Could it really unlock something? Leo looked back at Ethan, uncertainty creeping into his voice, but the confrontation with the entity had lit a fire deep within him. It feels like we're peeling layers back, but are we ready for what we might find? Only if we face the truth, Ethan replied, clenching his fists. We've come this far. We can't turn back. As if timed with their resolve, the shadows roared to life, the lineage of emotions cascading through the center of the cabin. Every name they spoke ignited a new wave of energy, forcing the essence of the past into the present. Remember, embrace the truth, the figure hissed, its presence invigorating the room, now vibrating with a strange energy. But with truth comes knowledge, and with knowledge comes choice. Ethan trembled, each option weighing heavy on his shoulders. The shadows writhed in pleasure as the ancestors began to reach out, their fingers grazing the edges of reality, trying to bring forth old stories, old pain. Bloodlines intertwined in chaos, the suffocating air pulsating with unrelenting intensity. What would they discover about the threads woven in their shared past? What horrific secrets lay buried in the sacred soil beneath their feet? Before he could brace himself for the tide of memories, the entity let out a single word that reverberated in the stillness, choose, and as the echoes of their bloodline swirled, the question burned in the air, scalding in its urgency. Where would their choices lead them? The room crackled with anticipation, each heartbeat sending shivers racing through Ethan's body. Choose echoed in his mind, a relentless drumbeat. But what choice could one possibly make when the weight of history pressed down like an iron shroud? Choose. Leo's voice trembled. What do we even have to choose from? He looked around, the flickering shadows dancing on his frightened face. Every name you utter, the figure replied, its voice both haunting and inviting, shapes your path. Each name brings forth a choice, deepening the ties you hold with your ancestors or severing them entirely. A wave of unease washed over Ethan. He didn't just see shadows anymore, he saw faces twisted in anguish, eyes wide and pleading. They were lost souls, trapped in a time now forgotten, intertwining with their lives like a thick web. Liam! Sarah shouted, her voice breaking through the fog of fear. The entity seemed to flinch, a ripple of distortion hinting at a deeper connection, a price yet to be paid. Mia hesitated, her expression a mix of dread and fascination. But we can't just shoo. Ethan hissed, his heart racing. What if each name we call out opens doors we can't close? A horrifying thought struck him. If memories were shackles, what kind of punishment lay ahead for speaking them back into existence? The entity's form wobbled and expanded, dark fingers reaching out as if to grab Ethan's own. You will feel their pain. You will share their burdens. But the question is, it paused as if savoring the tension, will you choose to heal those wounds, or will you leave them to fester? Please. Mia shouted suddenly, her voice cracking as she stepped closer to the entity, as if seeking power in its embrace. You have to show us. Tell us what to do. Ethan's heart pounded against his ribs in fierce protest. Mia, don't. He grabbed her arm, but her eyes sparkled with a desperate kind of determination. More names. They want us to speak more names. It's the only way. Mia continued, the shadows swirling urgently around them, a tempest of whispers that made each name sound like an echo of a distant storm. Rose Jacob Leo's voice trembled as he added to the growing resonance. Each utterance felt like a thread weaving their fates tighter and tighter with the unknown. The shadows began to distort violently, swirling into shapes, forming shadows of those they had named. Screams wove through the air, echoed cries of joy and anguish, melding together in a chorus that caused Ethan's heart to seize. A loud crack splintered through the cabin as the windows rattled violently. The light dimmed, shadows coalescing, and suddenly the figure transformed into a multitude of phantoms, their faces a torrid mix of sorrow and rage. They seemed to move as one, an amorphous collective of lost dreams and broken promises. Is this who you want to awaken? The figure's voice changed, sharper, more urgent. Are you ready to carry their pain? Ethan felt an overwhelming urge to flee, but he stood firm. His friends were waiting, locked in this horrifying moment. He caught Mia's determined gaze amongst the chaos, and somehow, it steadied him. They had come so far. I am not afraid. Ethan shouted, breaking through the cacophony, fighting against the suffocating weight of their ancestors' past. But was that truly the sentiment that gripped him? Or was it bravado, masking a fear deeper than the shadows encircling them? An eerie silence fell, punctured only by the sound of their collective breaths. The air thickened again, crackling with electricity, the entity hovering between them, an ominous weight waiting for their next words. You have your choice, but do you know the depth of your legacy? Ethan absorbed it all, the gravity of the decision heavy in the air. What unspeakable burdens lay before them? What sacrifices would their choices extract? The weight of history pressed against his chest, fierce and unrelenting. Choose it, whispered again, tempting and taunting. What if their decision could unleash a horror they could never foresee? What if their history wasn't just weighty, it was living? Breathing, hungry. As the shadows surged closer, the question lingered, could they withstand the truth of their lineage? The room swayed, a moment stretched and warped. What choice would they make next, and in that instant, what was at stake for them, their lives or perhaps something far greater? The moment hung in the air, electric and suffocating. The entity's voice dripped with encouragement, as palpable as a fog creeping over the landscape. What will it be, children of legacy? Speak your truth and the shadows will follow. Sarah's breath quickened, her eyes darting toward the encroaching figures. They twisted and writhed, the anguish of their former lives palpable. Who are they? She whispered, fear weaving through her words. They are the echoes of the past, the entity replied, a smile curling at the corners of its ethereal mouth. They've waited for this moment. Every name you call will not only tie you to them but to their suffering and their sins. Are you ready to bear the weight? Leo shivered, visibly recoiling from the weight of the statement. We can't, this is wrong. But Mia was relentless, consumed by fascination. This could be our chance to understand. Maybe they can guide us, maybe we're stronger than we think. She stepped forward again, her body taut with anticipation. Ethan felt panic claw at his throat. Every instinct screamed for him to pull Mia back, but her unwavering resolve pushed him further into the maelstrom. No. What if this isn't just knowledge? What if we awaken something we can't control? Josephine. Leo suddenly blurted out, his voice trembling as it tremored under the mounting pressure. Shadows flared at the name, twisting, transforming into a figure cloaked in dark mist, a tortured gaze piercing through the void. Ethan couldn't breathe. The room spun, every object seeming to warp and fade, as if they were teetering on the brink of another reality. With every name, the ties between them and these tortured souls tightened like a noose. "Keep talking," the entity urged softly, its form shimmering with a sinister glow. "Continue your ancestral invocation. The connections run deep like roots in the earth, more names think." Mia cried out, caught in a trance. "Elena. Thomas." The air thickened, a wave of remorse crashing down as the ghostly forms surged forward. Ethan watched as Sarah's face went pale, incredulity transforming into horror. "Stop. You're only feeding them." But deep within him, a seed of doubt took root. What if there was truth in their cries? What if they could absorb the pain instead of letting it fester? "No!" he shouted, backing away. "This isn't the way." Mia's eyes blazed defiantly. "But what if it is? We have the power to heal. Or to unleash chaos." Ethan roared back, desperation edging into his plea. Terror coursed through his veins. A wind howled through the cabin, rattling the door as if trying to escape the horror unfolding inside. The shadows grew larger, merging together in a horrifying cloud, the faces morphing into a grotesque amalgamation of their ancestors' traumas. Suddenly, the air shifted, and a chilling scream reverberated through the cabin. The specters screamed in agony, their mouths wide open yet silent, an echo of despair that clawed at their sanity. Ethan's heart raced, the pervasive dread settling like a stone in his gut. "Choose wisely." The entity pressed, its eyes glinting with a malevolent glow. "The time is slipping. This moment will bind you forever." Ethan felt the walls closing in, the fear of what they had awakened clashing with Mia's fervent convictions. Names hung heavy on the tip of his tongue, waiting for release. What if uttering them could bury them all here, forever cursed by these shadows of the past? He trembled with uncertainty, compelled to act but terrified of yielding. The atmosphere thickened with each moment, a cacophony of echoes ringing in his ears, a siren's song promising revelations wrapped in dread. "Ethan!" Mia yelled, her voice wavering. "Please! If we don't do something now, it'll be too late." As shadows lunged closer, Ethan's resolve wavered. The weight of history, the burden of their lineage, pressed against him like an avalanche, ready to consume them whole. What would he do next? Would he break the cycle? Or would he surrender to the tempest of their ancestors' anguished cries? The choice loomed before him, heavy and unyielding, and in the eye of the storm, a chilling thought seized him. What if the true horror lay not in the names he spoke, but in the ones he dared to keep silent? Ethan's heart was a war drum, pounding in his chest as the shadows coiled like snakes ready to strike. A lingering chill draped over him, tightening his throat, the weight of ancestral guilt crawling up his spine. He could hardly think, his mind racing through fragments of what he knew about Josephine and the others. Names burned in his memory, their histories steeped in sorrow and regret. "Ethan!" Mia's voice cut through the haze, desperation lining her tone. "Don't you see? They need us." "They don't need us," he replied, his voice strained. "They want to make us like them." The entity's laughter echoed around them, a haunting sound that twisted the very air. "You crave knowledge yet fear the cost." Speak. Each syllable dripped with temptation, pulling at Ethan's resolve. "Name the lost, save your world or lose it." The floorboards creaked underfoot, amplifying the tension that seemed to coil tighter with each breath. Sarah stood frozen, her eyes wide, lost between terror and morbid curiosity. "We can't." She finally managed, shaking her head, the color drained from her face. "Why not?" Mia challenged, the fervor in her voice unmistakable. "Are we to live in ignorance? There's power here, something far beyond our understanding. We could finally know them, feel their stories. Think of what we could uncover. Think of how many will suffer if we unleash what they carry." Ethan shouted back, frustration boiling over. His hands trembled as if they too feared the shadows, blurring and flickering like the failing light. The entity stepped closer, shadows entwining around its form, a dance of darkness that beckoned Ethan closer. "You're running out of time. The world outside this cabin grows dim. You seek the truth, so chase it, dear children." A thunderous crash echoed outside, rattling the windows, as if the spirit world was colliding with their reality. Mia jumped, panic flashing through her eyes. Another scream ripped through the air, this one more human, a cry laden with unspeakable pain. It was coming from them, the ancestors, the echoes, the lost souls. "Let them in, or we'll all drown in their agony," Mia cried as she stepped forward, boldness pushing her into the fray. Her defiance ignited a twisted courage in Ethan, yet he felt his dread blossom deeper. "Josephine," he muttered under his breath, knowing all too well the consequences of that invocation. The moment his lips formed the name, an icy wind swept through the cabin, extinguishing the flickering lights in an instant. The shadows surged, pouring from every nook and cranny, engulfing them. Ethan's world spun as he sank into the murk, vision blurring, consumed by dark memories woven into the air. He felt the pressure build, 1,000 whispered regrets flooding his mind, drowning out his thoughts. Each voice vying for attention, every story intertwining with his very identity. Faces twisted in agony and hope flickered past him. He wasn't just an observer. He felt their pain claw at the edges of his heart. Mia's voice pierced through the storm, faint yet determined. "Ethan. Hold on. They're just lost. Lost in the dark." He screamed back, his voice barely reaching her through the cacophony. "We can't save them." A blinding flash erupted, momentarily illuminating the faces of those trapped in the shadows. They were not just pitiful figures. They wore the look of broken courage. He felt a tremor in his bones, as if the ancestors themselves hitched their hope to him. "Relinquish your fears," the entity encouraged, glowing brighter. "Speak their names, and forge your destinies. Be the light they crave, the salvation they seek." Ethan was suspended in that moment, cradled between salvation and damnation. The shadows bared down, a storm of screams growing louder, drowning out all rational thought. He felt the electricity crackling within him, pulling, pushing, urging him to take that leap, to embrace the burden he tried so hard to escape. But what if speaking the names meant binding himself forever to the wails of the past? As he hovered on the precipice of choice, a surge of blinding light erupted from the cabin, illuminating the chaos and confusion surrounding them. Time seemed to still as the shadows screeched, a painful cacophony that threatened to consume him. Ethan clenched his fists, the choice burning in his gut like fire. "Who will you save?" The entity's voice mused, soft yet chilling. "And what will you lose in return?" With the weight of their past resting heavy on his shoulders, only one question remained: would Ethan dare to speak again, knowing it could alter everything? The cabin trembled, and it felt like the walls themselves were waiting for his answer. Ethan's breath came in ragged gasps, the weight of his ancestors pushing him, threatening to crush him under their collective sorrow. He felt the shadows wrapping around him, suffocating yet electrifying, an insane mix of terror and an undeniable urge to know. They murmured, their voices overlapping, blending with the echoes of his heartbeat, each a desperate plea reaching for the surface. Mia's voice broke through the storm again, a fragile lifeline in the chaos. "You need to decide. If you don't speak, they'll take us all." A flash of light flickered, illuminating a face Ethan recognized from old family photos, a woman with fierce eyes and a sadness that ran deep, like the roots of a mighty oak. "Josephine," he breathed, the name heavy on his tongue. Instantly, the strands of darkness twisted tighter, urging him to plunge deeper into the abyss. "Speak, Ethan," the entity coaxed, almost sweetly. "Let her voice be heard, and the truth will unfurl. They only wish to be remembered." Fear twisted inside him, a knot of dread he couldn't shake. What if Josephine and the others weren't merely echoes waiting to be freed? What if they were vessels bearing ancient grudges? "Ethan. The shadows, they're alive. They need our choice." Sarah interjected, panic edging her words. The room felt like it was fracturing, the walls pulsing. Ethan's heart raced, caught in a cyclone of emotion. He could feel their despair, the memories clawing at him, desperate and raw. Pain flooded through him, his hands shook uncontrollably. I can't. He shouted, a raw edge of panic shattering his voice. With a howl, the shadows surged closer, reaching and stretching, as if they were pulling him into their chilling depths. Ethan staggered, a lump forming in his throat, as the very fabric of reality thinned around him. The air grew thick, and he was suddenly aware of a presence hovering just outside the spectrum of light, a watcher, perhaps. Do you fear what you will discover? The entity taunted, its voice a melody twisted into a chilling cacophony. No. Ethan shot back, gathering what little resolve he had. I fear losing myself. But even as he said it, a flicker of determination ignited. If he faced the shadows, maybe he could silence their cries. Perhaps he could bring peace, even if it meant sacrificing pieces of himself. Josephine. He shouted again, louder this time, feeling the name resonate through his very being, mingling with the darkness. Show us your truth. The shadows momentarily halted. A hush fell over the cabin. With hesitant steps, they pulsed forward, tendrils searching for Ethan, exploring him like an invasive wind. He closed his eyes, the sensations overwhelming. Memories burst forth, the moments of life, of love, of agony, and he was pulled into Josephine's world. What did you want, Josephine? He screamed into the void, his voice filled with longing and desperation. What do you need from us? At that moment, a vision erupted. A flicker of light in the dark, a carnival scene from decades past. Laughter, music, and then the piercing cry of fear. Blood. The rush of flickering lights dimming as shadows closed in, suffocating joy in a swirl of despair. Betrayed. Came a whisper so chilling it rattled his bones. They betrayed us. You must know the truth, the real story, or we shall become lost forever. The shadows twisted violently, a collective surge threatening to break free. Ethan watched as figures fought against chains of sorrow and guilt, desperate to escape the hold of their past. He felt their anguish ripple through him, a reminder that history is never just a story, it's a tapestry woven with the collective threads of souls burned by betrayal. Just as the tide threatened to drown him, an image rushed through Ethan's mind, a pact, a forgotten promise that held the weight of his family's past. There was a cost. I will not forget. He shouted defiantly, locking eyes with the specter of his ancestor glowing faintly before him. In a moment of realization and resolve, he understood this was not just about the dead, it was about the living too. The shadows quivered, needing more than names. They craved acknowledgement, redemption. Mia gripped his arm tightly, grounding him amidst the dark. Ethan. You have to keep going. We have to face it together. But just as he prepared to unveil the rest of the truth, the whispers turned to screams, drowning out all thought, dragging him back into the chaos. What have you unleashed? The entity howled, its voice laced with fury. And as the walls of the cabin trembled, Ethan realized what lay ahead was not merely a fight for answers but a battle that could shatter their very souls. Would they emerge intact, or would they also become shadows of the past, bound forever to the choices they made? The darkness writhed, pushing forward as he stood on the edge of revelation. The tension crackled like electricity in the air, a crescendo enveloping them all as they hurtled forward, breathless, towards an uncertain fate. What would Ethan discover in this darkness? And would it be a truth worth bearing? Ethan's heart raced, a pounding drum echoing in his ears as the shadows swirled around him. Mia's grip tightened, anchoring him in the storm of ancestral despair engulfing them. They had journeyed too far. Secrets untold and memories buried rose to the surface like ghosts, swirling around them with insatiable hunger. We have to hold on to each other. He shouted, the words barely making it through the noise of the whispering phantoms. Together. Sarah echoed, her voice steadier, battling the encroaching chaos. We have to face whatever this is together. Mia hesitated, her eyes swimming with fear and determination. Ethan, you need to call out what you see. Keep speaking their names. The names aren't enough. Ethan shouted back, desperation coloring his words. We have to understand what they want. If we don't, then we're bound to this horror forever. Leo finished, arriving breathless to the group, eyes wide, a mix of fear and resolve. As they clung to each other, the shadows receded slightly, sensing their unified strength. The air shimmered with tension, whispering promises of truth and danger. Ethan's mind raced. Memories flashed, faces twisted in agony, desperate pleas for help, their pain echoing in his bones. Josephine, he murmured, feeling the name claw its way up. Tell us your truth. The shadows paused, swirling back like receding water, revealing flickering visions behind them, an image of Josephine bathed in moonlight, her face wrought with worry, then another of a family gathering that devolved into chaos. Whispers filled the air, they were real, each one a thread of their past weaving into a tapestry of heartbreak. We cannot continue until you remember the whole truth, the entity hissed, lingering in the shadows. Each name holds power, but you must bear the stories behind them. In that moment, Ethan felt an awakening. They need us to remember the pain and the love, he realized aloud, urgency surging through him. To acknowledge all of it. Let it out. Mia urged, pushing resolve through her eyes. What's the worst that can happen? Swallowing against the lump in his throat, Ethan felt the weight of history settle over his skin. Josephine. He shouted again. What happened to you? From the depths of the shadows, the wailing forms began to solidify, gathering energy around Ethan, drawing closer as they swirled with expectation. A haunting figure began to coalesce, in the murky depths, Josephine materialized, her expression fierce yet sad, but her message powerful. You bear the burden of our secrets. Speak, remember. With that command, memories cascaded through Ethan's mind like an emotional avalanche. He could see generations, atrocities committed, betrayals, pain culminating in a loss that echoed through time. Why did you all suffer? He cried, determination pulsing from every fiber of his being. Is it because we ignored you? Precisely, Josephine whispered, her voice both alluring and sorrowful. We linger here because you choose to forget. Then we'll remember together. Sarah shouted, nodding toward Mia and Leo. Every name. Every story. We'll put an end to these cycles of grief. Ethan felt the atmosphere shift, electric and alive, anticipation brimming. We're your voice. Let us speak. The shadows flickered, a dance of light and darkness brushing their faces, encircling them like a protective force. One by one, names spilled forth from their lips, stories intertwining. Ezra, who stood for his beliefs. Marjorie, who lost her only child. Timothy, who sacrificed for love. With each name, the energy surged, shadows churned and twisted, morphing into myriad emotions binding them to the stories of their ancestors. The cries amplified, fading into urgent silence, expectant yet still. We must break the silence, Mia breathed now, holding Ethan's gaze, hope piercing through the weight of fear. Speak, Ethan. Gathering strength, he raised his voice above the sudden stillness, help us remember. The shadows shuddered, wrapping themselves tighter around them, quivering as collective anguish soared. Suddenly, Josephine stepped forward, her essence radiating sorrow and warmth, resonating through the darkness that cloaked the cabin. What will you choose? To sever these ties or awaken the truth? What's the cost? Ethan whispered, feeling the pulse of his ancestors' heartbeats beneath his skin. Josephine tilted her head, an understanding shimmering in her hollowed eyes. The past weighs heavy, but it binds you together. Choose to understand and you may find healing. Tension swelled until it teetered on the edge of breaking. The choice lay before them, his friends bolstering him with their eyes. He caught a glimpse of the future, a future unbound from the chains of unexpressed pain. We choose to remember. He proclaimed, voice firm. Together. As the shadows exploded in a dazzling light, a cathartic energy washed over the cabin, lifting the weight from their chests. Simultaneous cries transformed into a symphony of liberation, memories sparkling like stars, softly echoing tales once lost. Before their eyes, places of hurt morphed into scenes of joy, grief turning to laughter. Ethan realized they forged a bond between the living and the lost, breaking the chains that had held them captive. The entity receded, the cabin trembling with the release of ancient sorrows. The air lightened, shadows retreating into the corners as warmth filled the room. They were no longer just prisoners of past agony, they were catalysts for renewal. As the last echoes faded, Ethan turned to his friends, their breaths coming slowly in unison, feeling the stillness wash over them. They were not just survivors, they were warriors of their legacy, transformed by the knowledge they unveiled together. "We did it!" Leo cheered, all fright lifted. Mia smiled, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "We're free." But beneath the surface, a flicker of concern emerged. Ethan paused, a lingering question in his mind: what if there were more stories left to uncover? It felt resolve, yet uncertainty balanced on a knife's edge. Would they continue this journey? Would they share it, bring others into the light? The world outside awaited, and with it, new choices. Then, a sudden echo rang out, unexpected but hopeful, another voice threading through their consciousness: "Is this truly the end?" A shiver cascaded through them, reminding them that while they had freed themselves, the future remained unwritten. As they stepped out onto the porch of the cabin, the moonlight illuminating their path ahead, determination surged within them. The shadows of their ancestors no longer bound them, instead, they became guides leading the way forward. "Together, we'll keep remembering," Ethan promised, hope igniting in his chest. "Let us not forget what we've learned and what is still to come." And with that, their fateful journey continued, armed with courage, understanding, and the will to confront whatever lay beyond the light. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next exclusive story. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything.